Super Mario Maker 2 features tons of crazy and useful enemies. There are circular, biting dogs, crazy, hammer-swinging turtles, long-dead Koopas, fire-spitting piranha plants, and many more. But which out of all those enemies is the worst one? Which enemy adds the least to the game? Which enemy is the most useless? Well, today we're finally going to answer this eternal question, because today we're going to put all enemies in a tier list that objectively represents, in my opinion, how good or bad they are. We will not only discuss how important each enemy is for the game, but we will also find out which enemy is the best one, and more importantly, which one is the worst. So you ready? Let's do this! Okay, so first let's talk about the rules of this little enemy evaluation. So enemies are all the items that live inside the green item wheel in Super Mario Maker 2. With one exception, we aren't going to discuss Bowser and Boom Boom, since those are boss enemies. If an enemy has multiple forms like Boos and Boo Rings, for example, then all those forms count as one enemy. Finally, we're first going to rank all enemies on a 1 to 5 fuzzy scale, with 5 fuzzies obviously being the best. Once all of them are sorted, we're going to answer the question which enemy in the best tier is the actually best enemy and which one in the worst and lonely one fuzzy tier is the absolutely worst one. Hooray! So let's start with Goombas. So Goombas are definitely not the flashiest enemy in the Mushroom Kingdom, but they do have their uses. First, they're just useful as standard enemies. Whenever we need to throw a small challenge into Mario's path, Goombas are an excellent choice. Second, there are actually a couple of small, interesting mechanics that make them quite unique. Winged Goombrats, for example, always bravely patrol on the exactly same tiles. We can see this here. This busy Goombrat at the top will never run on top of the P-switch. The cool thing here is that the tiles a Goombrat patrols on can actually be manipulated. If Mario hits his head against this brick block, the bullet blaster jumps upwards and the Goombrat is forced to change its path. After running into the blaster, it suddenly is willing to hit the P-switch. Hooray! Another really interesting thing about Goombas is that they're the only enemy that splits into two when defeated. None of those mechanics is a huge game changer or anything, but Goombas have their use cases. Therefore, let's rate them with 3 fuzzies. Next up, Cheep Cheeps. So, Cheep Cheeps, well, aren't the most interesting enemies. They're almost completely useless. They can't get stacked, they don't interact with anything, they just annoyingly jump around. The only mildly useful thing they're capable of is to ignite bombs if they touched lava before, which is cool, but not enough to warrant an additional wonderful fuzzy all on its own. So, I'm sorry Cheep Cheeps, but that's just a single lonely fuzzy for you. Next, the next C being Bloopers. So Bloopers aren't exactly the most important enemy in the world. Their moveset is really weird and they have very few uses outside of their normal enemy behavior. Nonetheless, it's a total of 2 fuzzies for the Bloopers. The reason they get a second one is because they can be used to build blooper randomizers, which surprisingly often come in handy. So they are not completely useless. Let's rate 2 enemies at once next. Spinies and Buzzy Beetles. So both of them are practically identical. One is just a bit more spiked than the other. First, both of them have a really interesting moveset. They drop down as soon as Mario comes close, which allows to build self-closing doors or simple anti-jump contraptions, and second and much more importantly, they also exist without an enemy inside, in their pure and perfect form as a shell. Shells are one of the absolute super uber important core things for each and every contraption ever built in Mario Maker. That's a super easy 5 fuzzies rating here for both of them, simply because Mario Maker would be a completely different game if the shells wouldn't exist. Alright, so dear Spike Tops, what do we do with you? I mean, we probably can all agree that you spiked guys aren't exactly the kingdom's most exciting enemy, yet you guys aren't completely useless. The fact that you're the only enemy that cycles around is pretty cool, especially in combination with Boos, and you're the only enemy that can be killed while on the side of a question block, which is probably useful for something. But other than that, there isn't tremendously much going on for you. Let's go with 3 fuzzies here. Spike Tops are just a good to have enemy, which directly leads us to Bowser's favorite type of troop, the Koopa Troopa. 4 fuzzies. Koopas are just a super integral part of the game. The difference between red and green ones is really cool. They allow for those puzzles where a green Koopa switches his green shell into a red shell. The moveset of red winged Koopas with wings is super useful for boss arenas. They're just an excellent, good for everything enemy. That was easy to rate. Sadly, it's much harder to attach the correct amount of fuzzies to our next enemy. Piranha plants. Piranha plants are surprisingly difficult to rate. See, the thing is the following. On paper, piranha plants are among the worst enemies. They don't add super important stuff to the game like shells do. Their moveset is, well, rather static. The fact that they shoot fireballs is cool and everything, but rather useless when building contraptions. There really isn't much going on in favor of them. So let's rate them with 4 fantastic fuzzies. So let me explain. The thing is, piranha plants are probably the single enemy I use the most when building traditional stages. The fact that they're a static enemy that shoots something into the direction where Italian hero is at is just so useful when designing courses that I can't get myself to give them less than 4 fuzzies. They really aren't that special, but they end up being so useful so often. Which brings us to our next enemy, the chain chomps. Luckily, the most circular dogs in the whole universe are much easier to rate. 4 fuzzies. Super great all-round enemy. Especially their pole is quite a unique part of the game. Also, if we ever get a Mario Maker DLC, Nintendo, could we please have the option to put on chain chomp poles? Without a chain chomp attached to the pole, chain chomp-less poles would be so incredibly useful. This single little change would instantly promote chain chomps to a perfect 5 fuzzies enemy. Hammer Bros time. The only enemy in the game that makes stages where they appear in instantly worse. 1 fuzzy, and that's just because the official competition rules demand of me to reward each enemy at least 1 fuzzy for showing up. In all seriousness though, Hammer Bros really do stink. The huge problem with them is that they're just so random in everything they do that we can't really use them for anything but randomizers. Their whole design is stupid. Just think about the following for a second. Toad finds himself in front of a Hammer Bro. Toad doesn't like Hammer Bros, so Toad decides to commit Hammer Bros homicide. Toad jumps towards the douchebag bro and now the game basically flips a coin. There's about a 50-50 chance that Toad just killed himself, because there is no way for Toad to know whether the Hammer Bro will start to throw a stupid hammer while Toad is jumping towards it. In one case, Toad dies, in the other case, the Hammer Bro dies. That's just not how good designed enemies work. Hammer Bros are the pick-a-pipe level of enemies. So, the Rocky Ranches are next. 2 fuzzies. Not much to say about them. They are, okay. Same for Monty Moles, which get 1 fuzzy more than their glass-wearing sisters. Their borrow mechanic is just really unique, and there aren't many other enemies that mirror Mario's movement that closely, which definitely gives them lots of cool niche use cases. So the next enemy is a real heavy hitter. It's the Thwomps. Thwomps are awesome. There are so many awesome ways to use them. Classic Thwomp use cases are anti-jump detection contraptions, position testers, or elevators. So I was actually planning to give them 4 of my favorite fuzzies, but then I realized something. Horizontal Thwomps are even more awesome. They can lag the game, they allow for incredibly interesting stuff. Just take a look at this small setup here. Here we just stack 2 munchers and a couple of cannons on top of a horizontal Thwomp, and suddenly we have a really unique flying stone face impulsion airship. Thwomps, those are perfect 5 fuzzies for you. Hooray! Munchers are next. There isn't much to say about them. They sit around, they don't do much except for munching. Yeah, therefore, a perfect 5 fuzzy rating. Munchers are so important to the game. The fact that they're a static enemy that does nothing and is solid is one of the most important things when building contraptions. It's crucial for puzzle stages, and it's something we often need when building a more traditional stage as well. They explode by bombs, they can't be killed by stars, they lock doors until a power block explodes. They can be used to build counters, they are essential when building crazy stacked enemy towers, like the flying Thwomp vehicle from just before. They're just everywhere, and they're one of the most important enemies in Mario Maker. Sometimes less is more. So let's talk about Wigglers. Oof. I really do like Wigglers. They are cute, their design is silly, the way they wiggle around is kind of funny, and their angry version looks a bit scary and cute at the same time. I really do like them, which is why this is going to be a bit tough. Wigglers, I'm honestly sorry, but that's just 2 fuzzies for you. Don't look that angry at me, it's really not my fault. You guys just aren't really that useful outside of your intended use, and even your intended use isn't that unique to begin with. I really want to give you a better rating, but then people would accuse me of favoritism, and we can't have favorites around here, can we? So sorry guys. Kamek is next. 3 fuzzies. Not much to say here. Everyone's favorite boy witch is a really unique enemy that doesn't do much outside of its intended use case. And now it's time to talk about the weirdest enemy in Super Mario Maker 2. The fish bones. So, Why is this an enemy again? Like, seriously? Why isn't that just an option for dry bones? Fish bones are barely enemies. They die as soon as they come in contact with anything. Big fish bones don't even trigger P-switches. They are cool in underwater stages, but that's already a niche use case. Fish bones, you shouldn't have struggled for independence and should just have stayed with the dry bones where you belong to, because that's just a single fuzzy for you guys. So dry bones, those are kind of interesting. On paper, they're a really unique and interesting enemy. They're really hard to kill for real. In some game styles, they even throw projectiles. They add the dry bones shell to the game. There's really a lot of stuff going on in their favor. On paper. But in reality, I almost never use them. No idea why, but there is almost always another enemy that gets the job done better than our dead skeleton Koopas. So let's go with 3 fuzzies here. So bombs. 4 fuzzies. I think that rating should explode itself. Lava bubbles. Yeah, I'm not a huge lava bubbles fan for several reasons. First, the only thing they do is either jump up and down or bounce off of walls in crazy patterns, which is both fine and good to have, but it's nothing overly exciting. Second, lava bubbles are often hard to put to good use. The problem is the following: there is no indicator where a lava bubble will appear until it appears, but once it appears, it's too late to dodge it most of the time. Dying to something like that is pretty frustrating since there isn't much we can do against it. As a side note, when using lava bubbles, it is often a good idea to visually indicate where they're jumping by using a different ground texture or maybe a semi-solid wall or a track piece or whatever, so that there's an indication where they're about to jump so that players don't get caught by surprise. Anyway, let's rate the lava bubbles with 2 fuzzies. Don't be sad, lava bubbles. That's still double the amount of fuzzies the Hammer Bros have. Okay, time to rate the scary stuff. Boos and clown cars. Let's start with boos. Boos are really cool since they interact with basically nothing. That sounds a bit boring at first glance, but that's actually super useful. Basically, whenever we want to stack an enemy tower in such a way that it intersects with solid blocks, we can use boos to do exactly this, which allows for tons of crazy shenanigans. But that's not the only useful feature that boos add to the game, since they're the only enemy that reacts when we look away. They're the core of almost all don't look back contraptions. That being said, they're sadly not that useful when used in their intended form. All that they do is chase Mario when he isn't looking, which is cool and everything, but that's pretty much all they do. So let's go with 4 fuzzies here. The clown car is next. So for anyone wondering why the clown car is an enemy while Banzai bills are a gizmo, I have no idea either, it's a bit weird. But since Nintendo decided to frame them as an enemy, we're going to give them fuzzies nonetheless. Namely, 3 of them. There is definitely a lot that clown cars add to the game, but everything is super specific. It's good that those scary, smiling vehicles exist, but they aren't integral to the game. The same can be said about Lakitus. They really aren't the most exciting enemy, yet there are those strange situations where Lakitu really comes in handy. The Lakitu itself is only 2 fuzzies in my opinion, but there's also the cloud it uses to fly attached to it. And this cloud is an excellent little item that opens up tons of different interesting design spaces. So I can't believe that I'm about to say that, but that's 4 fuzzies for Lakitus. 2 of them for the cloud alone. Alright, one final angry enemy is all left for us to rate before we finally are able to answer the question, which one is the best, and more importantly, which enemy is truly the worst. This angry enemy is the Angry Sun. That's still 2 fuzzies. My opinion hasn't changed. Oh, come on, son, really? Stop staring that angrily at me. You got 2 fuzzies last time. You got 2 fuzzies today. You now have a total of 4 fuzzies in your possession. Really no reason to be that mad. Anyway, that was the last enemy. We now have our final fuzzy list. Hooray! Now, all that's left to do for us is to find out which 5 fuzzy enemy is the best one and which 1 fuzzy enemy is the objectively worst. So let's start with the best one. So in the 5 fuzzy tier, we have Spinies for their excellent shells, Buzzy Beetles mainly for their shells as well, Munchers for being unbelievably useful in pretty much every situation, and Thwomps for all the crazy and amazing things they allow. So the best enemy out of those 4 is, at least in my opinion, I can't believe that I'm about to say that, it's the Spinies. Yep, here I said it. Spinies are the best enemy in Super Mario Maker 2. So here's my reasoning. Shells. Shells are just the single one most important thing in the game. They're a cool power-up and more importantly, they're basically electricity. They are by far the best way to transfer signals in a game. Without shells, Mario Maker just wouldn't be the same. I honestly love shells. So the real question now is whether Buzzy Beetles or Spinies add more to the game. And that's a really close call. But Spinies are actually a tiny bit more useful, because their winged form shoots spikes, which is a small but really unique thing that they have going on for them, which Buzzy Beetles just don't have. Yeah, Spinies, you're officially the best Mario Maker enemy in my opinion. Congratulations! Which leaves us with the final question. Which enemy is the worst? Which enemy is the anti-Spiny of Super Mario Maker 2? The nominees are Cheep Cheeps for their general usefulness, Hammer Bros for their lack of social skill and their unbearable random behavior, and Fishbones for not really having a reason to exist as an enemy in the first place. And the winner, or the loser, or whatever, the worst Mario Maker enemy, in my opinion, is, unsurprisingly, well, you know what, we kind of have a problem here. I'm just not qualified to objectively answer this question. I'd immediately and totally say it's the Hammer Bros, but I'm really an objective judge, considering that I probably still suffer because of a traumatic Hammer Bros accident that happened a couple of years ago, and even if I didn't, it wouldn't be much of an objective answer, would it? So let's do this differently. Let's collect as many different opinions on this matter as possible. Let the internet decide which enemy is the worst one. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do an election. If you hover with your mouse over the video, you should see a small I in the top right corner. The I stands for incredibly important election, and it is where every one of you can help us to find out which enemy is truly the worst one. The voting options are the following. In my opinion, the worst Super Mario Maker 2 enemy is A. the Hammer Bro, B. the Cheep Cheep, C. the Fishbone, D. I respectfully disagree with your stupid list. In my opinion, Hammer Bros are the absolute worst, but I can't wait to find out if you wonderful ladies and gentlemen agree. So here we have it. All Super Mario Maker 2 enemies ordered in a tier list depending on how useful they are and how many different things they add to the game. The Q&A video will be the next one, and I hope that you enjoyed this little video. If you enjoyed this little video, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and maybe you feel especially underrated today and want to hit the subscribe button as well. I hope that all of you have a wonderful day and to see you soon. Goodbye!